So originally what I was going to do for this video was just talk about the history of animation, but then I realized, oh wait, I want people to see it. So I decided to kind of change it up a little bit. You'll see what I do, and I think you guys will like this. Animated television. Oh yeah. There's so many good ones. Regular show? Yes. Phineas and Ferb? Yes. Smiling Friends? That's a new one. That's good. Planet Sheen?
Sheen, do not look under this blanket. JN.
The point is, for every really good animated show, there's about 10 stinkers. Now, why is that? Here's the thing, animation is so tricky in that there's no right answer, but there's a million wrong ones. I think for a show to survive, it needs to both look the part and play the part, and with animation, it's a lot easier to mess one of those up, because animation's just too expensive. People either don't want to spend the money on the aesthetic, or they pump all of their money and time into the aesthetic and then forget about the narrative. I think as well, animation is also just really expansive. You can do anything, it's almost overwhelming. So I think in the planning and production phases of animation, it's a lot harder to tell if a show's gonna be good, like this. Yeah. That's beautiful. I almost don't want to say the next part, because it's gonna be bad. You know it's gonna be bad. Or this.
No! I did not! She got hair in my gum! I'm going to find out!
Who let that on TV? I now present to you the Mount Rushmore of animated shows. For me, at least. These are the shows that, for me, as a collective, have inspired basically my entire sense of humor. I would say that these shows in their prime, unstoppable. These four demonstrate to me just how powerful animation can be as a medium. Without further ado, in no particular order. Looney Tunes. Simpsons. Arthur. SpongeBob. Maybe a fifth one for being Ian. Why do I bring this up? Well, it's disappointing when a show sucks. Yes, it's even worse when some of the best shows of all time tend to lose their spark. Look, it happens to the best of them, alright? There's only so much you can say in a television show before the narrative has run its course. I don't watch a lot of British television, but I certainly respect it. Mr. Bean, 15 episodes. The Office, 14 episodes. Just enough time to get in, tell your story, and get out while you still can. So today I won't be talking about Looney Tunes. I think Looney Tunes minus the racism is perfect, so that's it. No need to talk about that. Being Ian, also perfect. No need to touch on that. But then there's the other three shows. Simpsons, Arthur, SpongeBob. 3 shows that I hold dearly to my heart. 3 shows that, although differ aesthetically and thematically quite a bit, all fizzled out in remarkably similar ways. Today I'm going to go over a general timeline of just conception and downfall for these 3 shows. Then I'm going to combine the 3 into like a Venn diagram of failure, citing specific examples for how these shows are currently dying such slow and painful deaths. Alright, let's get into it.
I was known as the pile driver. On account of a medical condition I'd rather keep private.
I begin with The Simpsons because it's probably the most well-known show ever. It's certainly the longest-running animated series, and in the height of Simpson mania in the 90s, you couldn't walk 5 steps without seeing like a Bart Simpson shirt or hearing a reference or something like that. The show, if you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Okay, fine, I guess I'll humor you. It's about an exaggerated version of the typical American family. They live in Springfield, which is just kind of everywhere America, and yeah, there's like a broad cast of characters that kind of get them into these wacky situations. As for the family itself, there's Homer. He's kind of just lazy. Marge says a lot. She's Homer's wife. Bart is a bit of a troublemaker. He's a bit of a rascal, that Bart is. Lisa's the daughter. She's smart. It's kind of, that's it. And then, yeah, Maggie is just a baby, so what's there not to like? It's a little baby. The show thrives on American pop culture references, and I'd say if the show does one thing right, it's world building. There's this large cast of characters that, when you watch the show, you feel like you know every single one of them. And for a television show, that's a hard thing to do. Like, you feel like you know all these characters on a personal level, and you relate to them in one way or another. But yeah, the show was created in 1987 by this guy, Matt Groening. He was a cartoonist at the time working on a comic series called Life in Hell that he created himself. If you look at these Life in Hell panels, you can clearly see the visual inspiration, I guess is a good word, for future Simpsons character designs. Like, you can tell both of them are Matt Groening properties. This is a very well-known fact at this point, but Matt Groening's pitch for The Simpsons was actually completely improvised. Basically, there was this guy, James L. Brooks, that was interested in Groening's work, and he said, okay, hey, give me a pitch for a show you'd like to do, and Groening originally wanted Life in Hell. Makes sense. But then Groening soon realized that he had to give over a lot lot of the rights to his work by making that into a show, so he kind of scrapped that on the spot, and using real-world places and real-world people in his life, he actually just came up with the Simpson family on the spot, and I guess it worked. So yeah, The Simpsons originally started as a series of shorts on this show called The Tracy Ullman Show. It was this variety show in the 80s and 90s, pretty popular for the time. But yeah, these shorts were called bumpers, so they'd be put before and after commercial breaks to kind of just ease consumers in and out of segments. Yeah, audiences immediately loved The Simpsons, so much so that the show just became its own show. So yeah, for the first 2 seasons of The Simpsons, the showrunners were Matt Groening, James L. Brooks, and this guy, Sam Simon. Now, the first 2 seasons of The Simpsons they're strange, a little bit. Okay, wait, no more green screen for a second. The first 2 seasons of The Simpsons, though, I really like. These are, like, very underrated, and that's just because they look kind of weird. Like, they have that kind of Rugrats sort of weird, warped, like, Nickelodeon style. I think it's super neat. I don't know. I did a quick Google search to see if my theory was correct, and turns out Klasky Chupo, yes, that's how you pronounce it, the animation company responsible for Rugrats, actually did the first 2 seasons of The Simpsons. I can't believe it. Anyway, back to the video. It should be noted that right away The Simpsons was very controversial. It was banned in Myanmar and Venezuela for some reason. Cool. I think at the beginning Bart was the most controversial part of the show, and that's because audiences just thought he was a terrible role model for kids. Like, the criticism on Bart got so bad that a lot of Simpsons merchandise and clothing was actually just banned in US public schools for a while, which that's insane. This got so out of hand to the point where then First Lady Barbara Bush said, and I quote, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen." Interesting story. The writers actually sent a letter to the White House pretending to be a distraught Marge Simpson. This is a real letter they sent to the White House. I'm not going to read it out loud, but you can pause the video if you want to read it. But yeah, then get this. Barbara Bush read that. Within like 2 weeks of getting this letter, she sent back a letter to the writers of The Simpsons, basically apologizing for what she said. The ordeal doesn't stop there, because then President George H.W. Bush, during his re-election campaign, said this during one of his speeches.
The American family, to make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons.
Wow. The Simpsons actually responded to the president in an episode, and it was a rerun of an episode called Stark Raving Dad, which is the first episode of the 3rd season. And basically in this intro, this new intro, the family is watching the speech on the TV, and then Bart says this. Check it out.
Just like the Simpsons.
Huh? Hey, we're just like the Waltons. We're praying for an end to the Depression, too.
That's crazy. So yeah, even though there was a lot of controversy with The Simpsons, people just couldn't get enough of it. So much so that the ratings just kept going up, even though the showrunners kept switching every couple of seasons. Picture it, there's this new guy, Mike Scully, right here. 1997, he started being the show's runner for the 9th season. And although he was considered to be a good team leader, he, in hindsight, was the captain when the ship started sinking. Basically, there was this episode called Principal and the Pauper, and it jumped the shark. It kind of just ruined one of the characters. So yeah, people just kind of cite this as the downfall of the show, and I'm not going to touch on it here. There's entire 20-minute video essays just about this one episode alone and why it killed The Simpsons. So basically, the show just declined in quality from this point on, and after like a movie and 20 billion seasons, the show just isn't good now.
Hey, this isn't water. This is gas.
While The Simpsons had equal footing culturally in every place it aired in, SpongeBob was most important in North America. It was the longest-running animated series on Nickelodeon, it was the 5th longest-running animated series of all time, and I'll be damned if it didn't have the best soundtrack of any television show ever. The show, if you haven't seen it, what are you doing? But yeah, I'll humor you. The show's about this guy, SpongeBob. He's a lovable fry cook, and it's about his adventures both in and out of his workplace, the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krabs, he's the money-hungry boss. Plankton, he's his business rival across the street. And Squidward's his neighbor/co-worker that just despises him. Out of the workplace, you have SpongeBob's pet snail Gary, his best friend Patrick, who's a bit of a lazy bones like Homer, and also his karate friend Sandy. I think it's most commonly theorized that those 7 characters represent the 7 deadly sins, which, yeah, it's a cool way of looking at it. They also got various live-action sequences with SpongeBob's voice actor Tom Kenny playing Patchy the Pirate, which, for me as a kid, those were my favorite. But yeah, the show's just about some wacky undersea adventures in the town of Bikini Bottom. The show was created for Nickelodeon by this man, Steven Hillenburg, rest in peace. His 2 main passions were art and marine biology, which I think you can see where this is going. In a similar fashion to how Matt Groening's Life in Hell influenced The Simpsons, Steven Hillenburg had his own comic called The Intertidal Zone. This was an unpublished educational book about tide pools, marine biology, all that cool stuff. You can clearly see the artistic influence once again, like this guy right here. Yeah, his name's Bob the Sponge. So yeah, Steven Hillenburg at the time was working on this show, Rocko's Modern Life, and in 1996, when the show was cancelled, he was asked to pitch a new show, and SpongeBob was born. Interesting fact, SpongeBob the character was originally named Sponge Boy, and the show would have been called Sponge Boy Ahoy, which, that's incredible. Turns out Sponge Boy and Sponge Boy Ahoy were trademarked, so he had to change the name a little bit, which we were this close to getting Sponge Boy Ahoy on the airwaves. SpongeBob then premiered in 1999 to universal critical and commercial acclaim. Where The Simpsons was relatable, SpongeBob was surreal, and because of that, it was an instant hit. So after about 3 really good seasons of the show, they decided to make a movie, which if you haven't seen the first SpongeBob movie, it's incredible. So the SpongeBob SquarePants movie was intended to wrap up the series, but as we've seen with the history, Nickelodeon just kept producing episodes, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. You can clearly see SpongeBob's cultural impact in North America, most recently with the SpongeBob musical. That thing had no right being that good. But yeah, let's move on.
Gas chamber!
Don't listen to the haters, dude. Arthur is so good. You got Arthur. You got Buster. Steven Crowder voices the brain. You've got Francine. Muffy. DW. Okay, DW kind of sucks. We can do without DW. The point is, people have been sleeping on Arthur for far too long. Oh, that Steven Crowder thing I mentioned? Yeah, that's real. Steven Crowder voiced the brain in my now favorite Christmas movie, Arthur's Perfect Christmas. Roll the clip.
We're going to sing about Kwanzaa, a holiday celebrating people of African descent and African culture. The word Kwanzaa means first fruits of the harvest in Swahili.
If you haven't seen Arthur, watch it. It's great. I feel like people grew out of Arthur way too fast, but I think it has a lot to offer. If you haven't seen the show, it's about Arthur and his pals in a 3rd grade class. It's basically about like normal people life, normal people problems, except they're not normal people, they're animals. What? The show is very grounded and it's very positive. There was also a live action segment called And Now a Word From Us Kids. It was just a bunch of now 40-year-olds just saying, yeah, this is what we think of the episode, or they made a project like based on the episode or something. It's fun. Look, it's meant for kids, but I think there's enough in there for everybody. Like the previous 2 examples, Arthur is based on a piece of written media, but instead of being like a comic strip, this is an actual series of books by this guy, Mark Brown, legend. Just look at all the fun books. Look at that. It's Arthur. He's doing sports? Look at that, it's fun, right? Oh, Arthur. Oh, you let yourself go, Arthur. This, my friends, is Arthur's Nose. It's the first Arthur book. It was published in 1976. Arthur has been in the 3rd grade for almost 50 years. You can definitely see that in the numbers. Arthur is the longest running animated children's series, and it's the 2nd longest running animated show behind The Simpsons. While the show is broadcasted by PBS and mostly written and produced by WGBH out in Boston, a lot of the voice acting is actually done in Toronto and Montreal, so yeah, Canada. But yeah, the golden age of Arthur, I'd say, is the first couple of seasons. After that, you kind of lose me, but that's because I grew up only with the VHSs, and those are the first couple seasons, so my later episode knowledge is very limited.
Ooh, I'm hip to your pitch, hot mama. Now what do we do?
Now it's time for this whole Venn diagram business just to see what went wrong here. Up top, we'll do The Simpsons. Right here, we'll do Arthur. And right here, we'll do whatever the other one is, SpongeBob. I'd say between The Simpsons and Arthur, guest stars and longevity are the 2 biggest issues. While The Simpsons prides itself on its pop cultural references, you'd be surprised at just how much Arthur holds its own in that department. Ziggy Marley did the Arthur theme song.
Every day when you're walking down the street.
Chance the Rapper covered it in like 2014.
Every day when you're walking down the street.
I don't know about that one. But yeah, my favorite VHS of the bunch, Arthur Goes to Hollywood. It's very self-aware and actually very funny. The first episode just riffs on the whole Now a Word From Us Kids live thing. So yeah, Arthur and company are put into their own live interview setting for a different show called The Magic Toolbox. It's very good. I like the 2nd episode on the tape because it just riffs on other shows of the time. There's a South Park spoof, there's Beavis and Butthead, Dexter's Lab, WWE, and then the last one, Dr. Katz, which, if you're my age and you didn't know what that was, don't worry, I had to look this up too. Dr. Katz, Professional Therapist, was a show on Comedy Central in the 90s. What a strange reference to be putting in a kids show like that. Nobody would have known what that was. That's kind of the thing I love about Arthur. Even though it's a kids show, it continues to surprise me all these years later. Here's another example of that. I don't know if this is the tape or just the show, but look at this woman, Miss McGrady, okay, when she says picnic.
Nobody touches them until the picnic.
She just teleported there. But yeah, this is all to say that both The Simpsons and Arthur did a really good job of having celebrities on the show. You felt like Michael Jackson was a part of the universe. You felt like Mr. Rogers was a part of the universe. Sometimes guest stars will play themselves. This is Yo-Yo Ma on that same Arthur VHS tape that I was raving about earlier. Editing Nick here. I'm a dummy. I lied. It's not the same tape at all. It's actually Arthur's Famous Friends. This is the one with Mr. Rogers on it as well. Still a good tape, but just the wrong one. Other times, guest stars will play a different character. This is Danny DeVito in The Simpsons playing Homer's brother. If I didn't tell you that was Danny DeVito, you probably wouldn't have known. Now, if you flash forward to modern times for these shows, you see that the once humble and down-to-earth Mr. Rogers has just transformed to fucking Matt Damon with the ears. How off-putting is that? It's not even in the same art style. That's just that is Matt Damon with the fucking ears. Like, here's a photo of Matt Damon with the ears and Arthur. You can clearly see that that's not in the same style. At least Mr. Rogers was in the same style. Same thing happened to The Simpsons. Instead of cleverly putting celebrities in like they used to, now it's just like, oh, Donald Trump, let's put him in because he's America pop culture. What? Okay, bye Trump, next guy, put him in. There's no reason for these new celebrities to just be constantly thrown in these episodes other than, oh, it's The Simpsons, that's what we do now. Part of this is just how long the shows have been running for. After 10 seasons of any show, you're gonna start running out of ideas. The Simpsons has been going for like 32 seasons, what? I bet there's like 150 episodes, it's the exact same plot. I don't know if you picked up on this. Lisa meets a new friend. The friend is smarter than she is. They fight. By the end of the episode, they no longer fight. At this point, you can only assume that they're just trying to keep the race going for longest animated show. I bet 100 years from now, The Simpsons is just gonna keep churning out garbage. My question is, who still watches The Simpsons? The show has to be making money somehow to be still on the air, right? Who's tuning in every week? I think my best guess for who's keeping it alive is international audiences outside of the States. After all, for the longest time, The Simpsons was a relic of American pop culture. This is what American pop culture was at the given moment. People probably still think that. But man, for anybody that's in North America, just seeing these new episodes of The Simpsons it's just a watered down mess of references. Now that I'm older, seeing clips like this...
I am such a noob.
Do the homing thing.
What a noob.
Total noob. Classic noob.
It makes me physically tense up. Whatever, let's move on. Where do The Simpsons and SpongeBob intersect? Well, I'm gonna use the term from Community, 6 seasons in a movie. This is a very quick one. Both shows started off really strong, and by the end of the first movie's production, practically the original writing team that made the shows great in the first place had left. Like, the SpongeBob movie was supposed to be the logical conclusion, and if you watch the movie, it's a great way to end off the series. Instead, both Nickelodeon and Fox are just keeping these shows going for revenue over art. SpongeBob is an $8 billion property, and The Simpsons voice actors are making like $400,000 an episode. Okay, these people are doing good for money, but at what cost?
What is that getup?
Don't blow a fuse, Tootsie. What's next?
I'd say Arthur and SpongeBob have the most interesting connection, and that is politics and forgotten segments. An often overlooked series of shorts in the canon of SpongeBob is this: Astrology with Squidward. Yeah, this existed. Originally airing in 2000, this series of shorts was basically just Squidward for a minute reading out what your horoscope was. These are actually pretty funny. Let's roll it.
They're not. For the Pisces who wants to stop lying, I have simple advice. Never talk again.
I was expecting a lot worse. For one reason or another, I don't know why I couldn't find an answer online, but 6 out of 12, so half of these shorts were never actually made. So where am I supposed to get my horoscope from? I personally find Arthur's weird spin-off to be more interesting. This one's called Postcards from Buster. This was strange because it combined Buster Baxter, who's a cartoon character, with live-action elements, real people, real places, stuff like that. Basically, the premise was Buster would just go around the United States sending Arthur video postcards of the various locations he went to, and with that, he met real people in these real places, and as an adult, it's kind of silly to watch this, but I feel like as a kid, this would be kind of fun to watch. So, I mean, take a look.
That's a cool tattoo.
Oh, hey, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Where'd you get it?
Well, I got it here in the United States, but I've lived all over the world, so I wanted to get a compass and a tattoo of the world around.
Yeah, I don't know. That's really weird, though, right? There was one episode of this series in particular which was very controversial, and that is the episode titled Sugar Time, Heinsberg, Vermont. In this episode, Buster gets to know, brace for impact, 2 lesbian families. Yeah, that's it. But nope, take it off the air. Oh, they're nice people? No, take it. They're a happy family? No, off the air. Get it off. I don't want to see it. As Buster once said in the episode,
Boy, that's a lot of moms.
Yeah, I think the Department of Education felt the same way because they banned it in the United States, which is insane. So for those two examples, I had a problem with the lack of representation. Makes sense. But now in the 2020s, I feel like I have a problem with the forced representation these shows are putting in. So apparently now SpongeBob is just LGBTQ plus or something? Mr. Ratburn's gay now? SpongeBob celebrates Ramadan. I've seen it all. Sure, I mean, like, sure, but what? Like, just now they're saying this. I'm not saying you can't have LGBTQ plus characters. I'm not saying you can't have characters that celebrate Ramadan. Of course not. I just think revealing to the world the newly discovered sexuality of a children's cartoon character 20 years after the show's release, that just seems a little forced. I think the decision to do that for both Arthur and SpongeBob was just trying to get some relevancy back to the show after all those years.
Hey, what's up? Louis, checking in. Listen, as a kid in the early 2000s, who was vaguely aware of things that were going on outside of my house, I think it's kind of, well, very ironic that, now Nickelodeon is saying SpongeBob is gay, because I can remember that back in the early 2000s, there'd be a lot of these, right-wing, family values type evangelical Christian preachers who would go about saying, oh, SpongeBob is gay, he's normalizing the gays, ooh. But, especially because of that one episode, Rockabye Bivalve, where SpongeBob and Patrick raise a kid. It was even referenced in this clip playing behind me here. And this is from a Canadian sketch comedy show called Royal Canadian Air Farce, which is a sketch comedy show that aired on CBC back in the day. And they actually made light of this controversy, and this is one of the first places where I learned about it, so check her out.
Message being spread by that well-known homosexual, SpongeBob SquarePants. Righteous Reverend says Mr. SquarePants is spearheading an insidious campaign to spread the gay message. Let me get this straight. Dr. Dobson is questioning the sexuality of a sponge. Sponges are not gay. Clams, maybe. Is SpongeBob gay? Not in that outfit.
Look, there's a bunch of media that's really good about representing LGBTQ plus people and people of faiths other than Christianity. Moonlight's a great movie. Miss Marvel, that's a cool comic. But people, instead of 20 years later just going out and saying, oh, he's gay now, why don't you just make a cool new cartoon that centers around a gay person? I think it's just more beneficial to build stories from the ground up that represent those characters in a much better way. Like, nobody wants to see Melissa McCarthy as a Ghostbuster. Nobody likes Melissa McCarthy. But yeah, instead of making just the Ghostbusters women, why don't you make just a new badass action movie starring women? Like, Alien is one of the coolest movies I've ever seen. That's a woman. Wait, what? That's a woman? But she's cool, what? Look, the point is, Arthur and SpongeBob here are just clearly pandering to a very specific audience in order to try and get just that little bit of relevancy back after all these years.
You have your mask? You're gonna wear a mask, right?
Only sick people need masks, Francine, and I am not sick.
What?
Is Muffy an anti-masker? Hashtag Muffy's over party. Get her out of here.
Title: How to
hey guys, sorry I joined in
participate
late. What's up?
Election. A video presentation by Binky Barnes and Buster Baxter.
And
Hey,
me.
mine says by Buster Baxter and Binky Barnes.
Guys, what about me?
My way is alphabetical. Okay,
Can you hear me?
here
Hello?
goes. Huh. I've never actually asked my mom about voting. Me neither.
Me neither. Mom! Dad!
Guess what? My mom says she hardly ever votes.
Same.
She keeps forgetting. My mom voted last time, but not my dad. He had to work. Also, his car had a flat tire.
An important thing to note is the fact that Arthur, first and foremost, is a kids show. And Arthur, like I mentioned before, it's also very grounded in reality. There's a lot of characters that have real-world problems. Characters get cancer. Characters have Alzheimer's. Serious, real-world problems. And Arthur is a show about being a kid and having to deal with these social problems in your daily life, okay? That's all to say the mask and voting PSAs are not fully out of the realm of possibility for Arthur to be teaching kids about. For the most part, I'm okay with the mask one, because kids need to wear masks. It's important to educate kids on why a mask is important and why to wear it. Wear a mask. The election one's just a little bit weirder for me, and that's because although the show is marketing this message towards kids, it's just a bit strange for a third grader to be telling you how to get involved in an election. I don't know.
Did you two keep an eye on Maggie? Yeah, Mom. Yeah, Mom.
There's only one more piece of the puzzle left, and that is, what do all three of these shows have in common that just contributed heavily to their downfall? I'd say it's very simple, and that's just bad animation. So yeah, there's a thing called traditional animation, also known as cell animation. This is what classic Looney Tunes and Disney would have done back in the day. The animator here would draw and paint each frame onto celluloid sheets to then be photographed and put to film. This process obviously takes a while, so back in the day they had full-on assembly lines of people, one person drawing, one person inking, one person coloring. Look, I get it, it's expensive, and I get it, it's time-consuming. That being said, the look that you get with traditional animation is just beautiful. All three shows utilize traditional animation in its first few seasons. One of the benefits of having animation, traditional animation specifically, is there's a thing called smear frames. Now, smear frames, if you don't know what they are, it's on their own, it's just kind of a distorted version of a face or a figure or something like that. But when put into a reel of animation, it just makes characters so much more elastic and expressive and dynamic. That's not to say 2D animation doesn't have these smear frames, but they just don't look as good. Okay, back to the video. SpongeBob, beautiful. Seasons 1 and 2 of The Simpsons were really stylized and weird, but by seasons 3 to 9, they had figured out the designs. And then Arthur, it's beautiful watercolor backgrounds, look at that. But yeah, when I think of traditional animation, this is what comes to mind. Then there's what's called 2D animation, which is the most common thing used in television these days. It's upsetting. 2D animations are vector-based, meaning their body parts are kind of on their own rig. Say you're animating like Peter Griffin, for example. I know we've all had that fantasy. So in this scene, I want Peter Griffin to stand in his living room, I want him to stand still, and I want him to deliver some awesome, funny quips to the audience. Now, with traditional animation, to achieve that look, Peter would have to be drawn every single frame in full, even though his mouth is the only thing that's moving. With 2D animation, though, Peter's mouth can be animated separately from the body, so that's why in a show like Family Guy, his body is perfectly still while only his mouth moves. For these reasons, 2D animation saves time and it saves money. In our three examples here, you can very quickly see the quality of animation declining. Simply put, the narratives of the new seasons of these shows are terrible, and the visuals are even worse. Okay? Look at Old Arthur, for example. Old Arthur used to be beautiful. Now with Flash animation, it's just devoid of the personality that made it good in the first place. The show is not completely ruined by it, but it definitely just ruins my engagement, so, you know, for that reason, it's disappointing. Why did I make this video? Why focus on the bad when you can focus on the good? After all, these shows are my favorites of all time. They've inspired my sense of humor. They're incredible. Though the good episodes will always be the good episodes, I think the legacy of these shows over time has just gotten worse because of these newer episodes. After watching back the footage, I think I just said episode 58 times in that last sentence. Forgive me for a few of those blunders. I've been filming for hours at this point. I'm exhausted, but the video's almost done. Thanks for sticking around. Is there a thesis here? Do I have a point? Not really. I'm just kind of pointing out these mistakes so that aspiring screenwriters and directors and all these people that want to make a show can do it the right way and try and avoid these mistakes. I just want television to be art again. So yeah, this is the road my channel's going down. A lot more commentary style videos, which I'm enjoying these a lot so far. That's not to say the sketches are completely gone. I think that transition into full commentary channel is going to be a slow one. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like down below, share it with your friends. It always means a lot. But yeah, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go watch some old shows. Maybe some f***ing Planet Sheen, I don't know.
Decide once and for all which team is better, the old-time gladiators of yesterday or the modern gridiron heroes of today.